Good afternoon. Hello. Yat and Donna Spears in Ishia. Hashkan Hatsohonishle, Ojibwe people, Bashichin, Tatnestani Dishiche, Do Choctaw Chickasaw people Dishinele. Hi everyone, I'm Indana Spears. I'm from the Navajo Nation in Arizona. I'm from the Yucca Fruit clan. I'm born for the Ojibwe people. My maternal grandfather is from the Chickasaw people, and my paternal grandfather is from the Ojibwe people. It's an honor to be here with you and all the work that you're doing, and I wanted to acknowledge that even though I'm an Indigenous person, I'm still a guest here on this homeland, here in Connecticut. And as such, as we build a community together as guests, as neighbors, as people living in Connecticut today and building a future for our children, I think we should begin, and your organizers wanted to begin with an acknowledgement of the land that we are on. The land we gather on is the occupied territory of the Mohegan, Mashantucket Pequot, Eastern Pequot, Schaghticoke, Golden Hill Pagusset, and Nipmuc people who have lived here since time immemorial and have guided this land ever since then and well into the future. We look forward to the event this afternoon. We welcome you and we thank you for being here. Kitapatash Ashihe.
Thank you, Indana, and Donis, and thank you all of you for being here today. It's a hearty crowd, and a lot of our partner organizations are here, and it got cooler and the rain held off. Thank you so much for being here for a very important event. I'm Brian Stiltner, a professor at Sacred Heart University in Fairfield, and I'm chair of the steering committee of the Connecticut Human Rights Partnership, CHRP. A little bit later on, I'll be introducing my co-MC for today, Judy Weidman Kelly. All the people in yellow t-shirts, but even more people who aren't in yellow t-shirts and who took a picture earlier, were a lot of people who helped plan this event. There's so many people that went in. If we did a listing of all of them, it wouldn't be possible. But I just want to give a big blanket thank you to everyone who helped plan for the event. All the high school students here today who are helped volunteering. And let that be a lesson to use the clips if you're going to use this. CHRP is proud to be hosting this event along with our more than 40 co-sponsoring organizations. In a couple times during the program, we're going to list the names of our co-sponsors here today, or many of whom are here today. We also want to say before we do that, before that comes up, some of them are here with tables, with sign-ups, with literature. You can browse around as you've already been doing, find out what's going on. There's also voter registration available over there. So if you maybe moved within Connecticut and haven't made that address change yet, you can do that. If you haven't registered to vote, if you just moved from out of state, or if you're a student and that's kind of coming up, your birthday's coming up soon and haven't done that yet, the voter registration opportunity. Obviously, be socially active, culturally active, and politically active is all important parts of human rights. CHRP is a collaborative network of educators and organizations deeply committed to promoting a culture of human rights in Connecticut. Our organization is, by design, a network and a collaboration. So this here is CHRP, is Human Rights Partnership. CHRP was founded a little less than 4 years ago in December, around the 66th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is December 10th, 1949. So here in a little less than 4 years, we've grown a lot, especially in this last year and a half as our network has kind of built, as we've collaborated more together, and this is our biggest and most impactful event yet, and it's only going to get bigger and more impactful. So we want you to stay involved. We hope you're inspired by today's event. We hope you connect with us, stay connected with us on social media. We're going to be doing an event in December at our farm in West Hartford, and we're going to be looking to kind of help us identify what's the agenda for promoting human rights in Connecticut in the next 5 years. We're here today to celebrate the positive energy that has happened in Connecticut, as well as take notice of the work that still remains to be done locally, statewide, nationally, and globally, and to understand how all those issues are connected. Look out here, I see climate justice, I see healthcare justice, I see housing justice, I see rights for the indigenous, rights for gay and lesbian and transgender, women's rights, rights for all people. But rights have to be for the individual, and rights are for the community and really for our global community. As Martin Luther King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And also I'd like to quote Eleanor Roosevelt, who was the chair of the committee that founded the Universal Declaration, since this event is kicking off celebrating the 7th anniversary of the Universal Declaration. Human rights didn't start 70 years ago. Human rights have always been part of the human community, but we've had an increasing awareness of ourselves as having universal human rights in the era since World War II. Eleanor Roosevelt said that universal human rights start in places small, close to home, places so small and so close that they can't be seen on any maps of the world, yet they are the world of the individual person, the neighborhood you live in, the school or college you attend, the factory, farm, or office where you work. Such are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice, opportunity, equal dignity without discrimination. Unless these human rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere. Without concerted citizen action to uphold them close to home, we shall look in vain for progress in the larger world. Close quote. So that's really what we're doing here today. The grassroots groups and you guys here today are the ones who are making the promise of human rights real in your communities. It's a big responsibility, it's a huge honor. You're already doing it, and we hope that today this helps you do it a little bit better, helps us all do it a little bit better. As I said, so many people have helped make today possible. I couldn't begin to name them all, but in a blanket way, I want to thank the members of the CHRP Steering Committee, the wider group of the September 8th planning events. There was monthly then weekly conference phone calls all summer long, and sometimes a dozen people were on those and taking up jobs and making this event happen. Social media campaign, making signs, everything. To my colleague, I do want to mention one person by name, my colleague from Sacred Heart, Greg Golda, who provided the sound here today. Thank you very much, Greg. And his son, Grayson, dragged along. To all of our speakers and performers, who you will know by name as they come, and to all of you. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the first of today's guest speakers. He's chair of the Department of Internal Medicine at Manchester Memorial and Rockville General Hospitals, and the mayor of the town of South Windsor. Please welcome Dr. Saud Anwar.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Is that too loud, or should I be louder? So who knows what this is? Anyone? Well, this is the original replica, authorized replica of the first human rights declaration that was ever made. In 539 BCE, there was a king by the name of Cyrus. And from all documentation, that was the first human rights declaration that was ever written for humans. People lived with it, people believed in it, people abided by it, but it was never documented. So this is called the Cyrus's cylinder, which actually in many years ago was documented. And I'll read some of the parts of this for your benefit, and I'll put this down. Okay. Did you hear what I said, or should I go over it all over it? Just joking. Okay, so this is what the inscription says. I announce that I will respect the traditions, customs, and religions of the nations of my empire, and never let any of my governors and subordinates look down or insult them while I'm alive. I never let anyone oppress any others, and if it occurs, I will take his or her right back and penalize the oppressor. And this is 539 BCE. I will never let anyone take possession of movable and landed properties of the others by force or without compensation. While I'm alive, I will prevent unpaid forced labor. Today I announce that everyone is free to choose a religion. People are free to live in all regions and take up job, provided that they never violate their rights. And this is actually how the first time the documentation was, and believe it or not, that infected the entire world at that time. And that infection has continued on till this time. But think about this for a second, because here you have, at that particular time, the most powerful human, from the political capacity point of view, of the most powerful nation of that time, the Persian Empire, speaking about giving rights to everyone and anyone, anywhere, wherever that would be a control. And that was actually how the things were infected for everybody else, to the point that the Greek, the Romans, and all other empires at some level started to feel that that was something that they needed to aspire for. And now, keep in mind that there are two forces in these situations. When you are in the position of authority and responsibility, you have another force which tells you that you are better than the other, that tells you that you can control the other, that tells you that you have the capacity to have financial benefits or other benefits that you can achieve from impacting the other. And then you otherize every other. And that is what is the other danger of this otherness. And the other part of this situation is similar situation, similar power, similar authority, and the person says, we are one. We are one. And we will make sure that we protect everyone to be able to do what they want to do. We want to make sure that everyone takes care of themselves but does not take away somebody else's right. And we live with those same emotions and the same powers and the same risks that all people in authority may develop at some point in their lives and their careers. As we look at the current status, if you look at the list of all the rights, about 70 years ago in the current modern day era, if you will, which have looked at those rights, which are the rights of practicing your faith, which are the rights to be able to sit down and have a conversation in public or in private and say what you would like to say, or the right to be able to not be persecuted because of your appearance or your background, rights to have a nationality, right to be able to work and be paid for it. All of those things are enshrined in documents. And in the current time, in the most developed time of history, look at the numbers of where we are. Look at the numbers of all the list of rights, and arguably we are in the worst state that we have ever been in our recent and long-term history of mankind. So we have failed the declarations from 539 BCE all the way to this time, if you look at the bigger and broader impact that is expected. So what do we do? Well, the reality is, the good news is, that every time we get into this position, there are people who do stand up. There are people who stand up and inspire us to be able to do what is right. Stand up, and we have had Martin Luther King, we have had Gandhi, we have had all of these inspirational people, and in the past we had prophets who would actually tell us and bring about the beauty of our inner self outside. And that is the secret. The secret of all the leaders that have existed in the past who have allowed us to be better than who we are required the individuals to go inside of themselves and find that inner human who has unconditional love, that inner human who actually looks at each other as one, who actually lets go of the otherness. And that inner human is equal opportunity in each and every human being there is. And that inner human is the success and the secret of the success of all the people who have organized and gotten us to those documents and to the actions. And today the time has come again for us in our local communities and beyond to go back and identify that inner human and recognize that we are one. We will remain one. And our universe is small right now, but if everybody is united, this universe starts to increase. The other option is not an option. There is no outcome in that. This is the only option. And you know what? When you're part of this option, you sleep well. You sleep better. You sleep with a smile, you wake up with a smile. The other option is unhealthy. Even science is telling us that. So I'm honored that CHRP is doing this. I am honored of all the volunteers who put their time and effort into this work. And I just want to thank you for being here, for being a voice, for being in the environment to be able to say no, I refuse, we will remain one. And we will be one voice. With lots of love. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anwar, for those terrific remarks, which really helped put our today in context. The Gospel Fest helps to put in some context too, although I like it when it's kind of mellow and I don't have to fight against it too much, so hopefully it'll stay like that. I wanted to read the first third of our co-sponsoring organizations, and thank you. If you're here from them, feel free to whoop. The ACLU of Connecticut, the Anti-Defamation League Connecticut Region, the Albert Schweitzer Institute at Quinnipiac University, the Acomot Education Initiative, Artists for World Peace, Black Lives Matters New Haven, Calling All Brothers, Campus Compact of Southern New England, Center for Disability Rights, Center for Latino Progress, Charter Oak Cultural Center, CHISPA, Code Blue, Collaborative Center for Justice, Commission for Human Rights and Opportunities, and to pause here in the C's, come up to Conard High School students and faculty who are here with a lot of volunteering today, so thank you. I would now, speaking of high schools, I would now like to introduce Anna Zakaris, a senior at Avon High School. Anna.
Good afternoon, everyone. As you said, my name is Anna Zakaris, and I am a senior at Avon High School. And I'm here today not only as a student, but as an advocate for genocide and Holocaust education. I testified in support of Senate Bill 452 that requires genocide education in social studies curricula across the state of Connecticut. Thank you. I testified in support of this bill due to my own personal experience studying the Holocaust, genocides, and human behavior at the high school level. In my sophomore year, I had the opportunity to take a class called Genocide and Human Behavior. It's a unique class, one of a kind in Connecticut high schools. In addition to this, I had the privilege of traveling to Eastern Europe to study the Holocaust in more depth and complexity than I ever thought possible. As a mere 16-year-old, I was exploring the intricacies of the darkest days of human history. That's a lot to take in. I had to come face to face with the realities of human nature, which is not comfortable to process, especially as a young individual preparing to enter the real world. As my teacher, Mr. Stu Abrams, says, it is hard for anyone to be confronted by the depths of depravity that man is capable of, while also being buoyed by the grandeur of humanity, also on display. My experiences put me in the position to examine how my peers respond to the same information. 25 others sat with me in the classroom and read chilling accounts from Rwanda, looked at horrific images from Cambodia, and watched disturbing footage taken in Germany. I traveled with another 20 students to Europe. Together we stood on the ground where crimes were committed, where blood was spilled, where people stood up after being struck down again and again. I saw the look in the eyes of my peers and witnessed their pain, sympathy, and fear as they absorbed this information and the undeniable facts of history. I watched my friends realize what is at stake in life, that all actions have consequences, that all words have an impact, and all prejudice affects a life. There is power in this knowledge, especially as a young adult. There's power in knowing that your actions and lack thereof can be scrutinized for years to come by following generations. My peers and I realized that we have to be cognizant of what side of history we want to end up on. I will never forget the experience of stepping on the tracks of Auschwitz-Birkenau. Me and my fellow students taking in this place that's become a symbol of hate. In elementary school and middle school, students are told the importance of education as an institution. We are told that education has the power to ward off evil, that it's the biggest tool to combat injustice and hate. And I accepted this and put faith in my education to protect me from all the horrors I found in my history textbooks. However, when I stepped onto the train tracks at Auschwitz-Birkenau, I realized that this was not a construct of an uneducated populace. This happened only 73 years ago. This was not created by people who did not have access to higher level learning. They committed their crimes in spite of education. So in the words of Chaim Gnat, so I am suspicious of education. What does it mean for students like me, students like my peers, and teachers like the ones I have at Avon High School? How do we change the way we educate so we can build a world with less hate? History shows us that numbers, figures, and literature aren't enough to prevent humanity from committing crimes of hate. We need to be teaching compassion, tolerance, and the impact of our actions. We as the future generation need to question the actions of the past so we can be certain that we're heading to a better future. Because education means nothing if we as students are not becoming more human. Connecticut has taken revolutionary steps by passing this new bill. And Connecticut is no stranger in taking revolutionary steps in the name of social justice. Our state is full of amazing men and women who have taken great strides for humanity. And as a Connecticut citizen, student, and soon-to-be voter, I think it is incredibly important that Connecticut remains a leader in human rights as we continue to move forward in a generation and an era that is not free from conflict. We don't need to look further than our own borders to see hate and injustice. That's why it remains essential that we as the state of Connecticut continue to prioritize human life and value. That is why I'm honored to be here today recognizing and celebrating the 70th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Anna. That was awesome. And it shows you the power of what people working together can do no matter what age they are, and how a lot of our most important inspiration comes from the younger generations reminding us not to fall short of our ideals. As a professor of theology and a member of faith community, I'm always excited too that part of our broad network of everyone who collaborates together are people from faith communities, and I want to give a shout out to some people. I always see the Sisters of Mercy at some of these cool events in purple, so thank you for being here. And I've met some other people, ministers from the Congregational Church, from Lutheran churches. We have people here from the Jewish community who work on anti-Semitism and awareness and Holocaust education, and probably many other people from faith communities and people of no faith communities representing here today. The important thing is that religion at its best is something that can contribute to a vision of collaboration, calling us to the common good, and reminding us of the humility that we need to have in putting forward our passion for a better world. And that leads to our next speaker, co-founder of Moral Majorities Connecticut, a broad-based faith and other organizations network to call the U.S. to a moral revolution. Pamela Selders is our next speaker.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I want you to be able to hear me. So if I say yay, say yay. Yay. Great, great, because I'm gonna need your help at some point. So I just wanted to say first off that I'm here, and well, I'm Pamela Selders. I am a co-founder of Moral Monday CT, Black Lives Matter. And I'm also a healing worker. And in fact, most of everything that I do in the name to help heal, to move us toward healing. And today I'm feeling discouraged a bit because, you know, I'm for real when I'm out there in the streets. I'm for real when I'm trying to help people to understand themselves so they can be better. I'm for real. And I am coming across too many people who are just playing games with it. It means nothing to them, you know. This idea of human rights. You know, I don't really know if people are really sincere about it because, you know, racism, for example, is not new. How many think racism is new? It just happened. Nobody? Well, then why do you think it is still happening? Nobody knows, right? That's discouraging to me. Does somebody know? One somebody, tell me something. Just one somebody. Because why? What did she say?
To oppress someone.
Oh, to oppress. So you're coming from the perspective that people enjoy oppressing people. Do you all enjoy oppressing people out there? No. So anyway, I'm discouraged about the fact that people that I work with, people who have been out there in the movement, doing the work, side by side with me, getting arrested, doing the rallies, holding up the signs, have not yet progressed at all. And so I don't know what to say about that. I don't. So I just have to say, I'm here today with that on my heart and on my mind. So as a healing worker, I want to offer perspective of human rights from the healing work community. Everybody hear me? Okay, so there are 7 human rights from this perspective that we are all born with. These rights are imbued within our bodies from the time that we leave our mother's womb. The first human right, and I'm going to point, the first human right that we have is the right to exist, the right to be here. If we are born on the planet, then we have a right to live on the planet. That's a human right. The second human right is the right to relate, to be in relationships, to be relational, to connect with each other, to connect with ourselves. That is a human right. The next human right is our right to our own power, to our agency, that ability for us to act on our behalf and on the behalves of others. So the right to our power is a human right. The next right we have is our right to love. We have a right to live in love, to be in love, to experience love, to offer love, and to receive love. That's a human right. The next right we have is the right to speak our truth, to say what it is that is true for us, to name the thing that you need to name for yourself and for other people. That's a human right. The next right is our right to see, and then see beyond what we see. So we can see what's right in front of us. We can see that thing. But then we have a right to see beyond that. And to say, it is something else that's going here than what meets the eye. That's perception, and that is a human right. The next right is our right to know. It is connected to everything in the universe. And we have a right to have access to it, to have access to knowledge, to think, to understand, to question. All of that, human rights. Okay, we got them? Okay, so now I need your help, because I want to go back through the rights and have you tell me some ways in which those human rights are violated through our practices, through systems, through laws, and through policies. Okay? Okay? Okay. All right, stay with me here. I can't do this by myself. I need you to relate to me, and I need to relate to you. So the first right, the right to exist. Can you all tell me some ways, and this is connected to, I want to say, our basic needs: eating, drinking, breathing, survival, our right to survive. Can you all tell me some ways in which our right to exist on the planet is violated, threatened, suppressed, etc.? Just a few.
Doesn't have clean water yet.
The water in Flint and other places, yes. That not having clean water to drink is a violation of our human right to exist. Yes. Any others?
Where they live.
The right to shelter and be in safety. Safety is connected to our right to exist. Yes, one more.
Police brutality.
Police. So, if you are a person of color and you hanging out in Hartford with your friends, and the police walks up to you and your friends and says, I'm trigger happy. Just give me a reason and I will shoot you. Yes, that is a violation. It is a threat to his and her right to exist on the planet. So let's now go to relationships. Can you all tell me a thing or two that violates that and threatens relationships? Homophobia, absolutely. Yes. Okay, so the thing that comes in mind for me is the laws that we have around immigration. So people are needing to connect to us and we to them. They're needing to relate. And they come here really because their first right is threatened. So they come here or try to come here for their livelihood, and their lives are threatened, taken away. Their children are taken away from parents and locked up somewhere, raped, starved, and abused in all kinds of ways. That is a violation of our human right to relate to each other. Okay, so now I'm gonna go to our right to power, our agency. Can you give me one or two?
We can do all seven, based on our timing, okay?
Okay. All right, I'll just tell you, he says I'm running out of time. I'm talking too long. All right, so I'm just going to name it. The right to our power, I see definitely in terms of mass incarceration, how people are limited in terms of their ability to work for themselves, voting, and all of the shenanigans that's going around with the gerrymandering and all of that, taking away people's agency to have a say in their lives. That's a violation of human rights. Okay, speaking our truth, protest. We have a right to protest. We have a right to say this is wrong and we don't want to be shot down, we don't want to be killed. And then what happens with that, when you get shot with rubber bullets and tear gas, violation of human rights. Violation. And our right to perceive, we get a right to question or to see what's in front of us. We see the people, we saw the police shoot the boy on the camera. We saw it on the video. You did, it happened. You can trust what you see. And even the perception of that is tainted with when people analyze it out to talk you out of understanding what you see. That's a violation of our human rights. The last one, the violation that is there for me prominently is our right to have a quality education, our right to learn, our right to knowledge. It is violated on a regular basis. Those are our 7 rights from the perspective of the healing community. And the thing is, we all have to work to make sure that each one of those rights are not violated. And we need to do the work. We need to be for real about it. We need to ask ourselves the question, since we know about human rights that you know of, then how come this world isn't changing? Have you done the work that you need to do to change it? That's what I want to leave you with. Do the work that you need to do to shift and change so that we all can live with our human rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela, for great words, a great, very large integrated perspective of how human rights, awareness, education, relationality, and acting relate together. We have a first little change in our program to which is interspersed 2 times with some spoken word performances. So our first performer this afternoon is Tyler Page, who graduated last year, I believe, from Manchester High School. And is Tyler here too? All right. Welcome, Tyler.
What's up, everyone? Can you hear me? All right. I'm going to warm you all up a little bit before I get started. We're going to get a little punk rock on the Capitol steps. First and foremost, I want you guys to do a little repeat after me. I want you to say, "Damn, poet." Damn, poet. Spit, poet. Spit, poet. Bars. Bars. Snap your fingers. Stomp your feet. I want to hear you louder, guys. I'm warming you up. These are all appropriate responses to a slam piece. I want your energy. I want to hear you guys. If you hear a line and you dig it, I want to hear you guys, you guys can just yell at me. That's the kind of energy I'm feeling today, all right? All right, without further ado. Dear 1%, why is my life less valuable to you than your third yacht? When is enough money truly enough? Is it before or after you pay us to look past your human rights violations? Before or after slave labor? Dear Jeff Bezos, I have a question about your $40 million wall clock. When does Flint, Michigan get clean water? Dear Donald Trump, a follow-up question about our $700 billion defense budget. Do you still grasp how much money $100 billion is? We could stop the everlasting homeless veterans versus immigrants debate and give them both homes. How much money did you allot to Space Force, to the military parade? More or less than you cut from mental health services. Dear working class, immigrants aren't stealing our jobs. Another poor man is not your enemy. The rich are stealing our wages, 2 birds drawing blood from 1 stone. Corporate wealth swells because their accomplishments are built on our backs and paid for with our strife. Dear 1%, I've heard children wonder why some kids deserve meals more than others. Watch my peers conceal and ignore far too many traumas because medical bills breed resentment in our profit above morality system. Hospitals collect interest and collateral on every bad decision spurred by a low bank account balance. Every untreated injury that became a lifelong battle scar, every pain left to metastasize. Why is our value in this society based on how much revenue we can produce? Dear 1%, what if poverty's child never sees an open door? What if when a life lost is $1 earned, you won't hesitate before the slaughter? Tonight, 600,000 Americans will sleep on the streets while over 18 million homes sit vacant. Grocery stores will throw away 35 million pounds of food and 1 in 6 of us will go hungry. The only thing separating from me and him is the generosity of kind strangers. Fortune that lies in a skin color or a family name. Dear tired, we live on a planet of surplus. Do not let anyone fool you. We are not the greedy ones. Friends and family, lovers and enemies, heroes and monsters, babies and mothers, each swathed in rags. We all deserve to eat, and yet we might each know the twist of an empty stomach. Might work away time we don't have on an unlivable wage while CEOs pocket billions because survival is not negotiable. Dear hungry, I see the way you never stop giving. I too have known the deep ache of hunger well. I've eaten meals that tasted like guilt, felt envy and shame and grief over $1. But I have been so blessed by the kindness of strangers who have worn these shoes. There is something so beautiful and bittersweet about the empathy struggle instills within all of us. I have watched strangers go to unforeseen lengths, dig their own ditches for the well-being of others. Protecting each other is a revolutionary policy I can stand behind. Dear upper-class confusion, a livable wage is hilarious in a world where stature determines if you live or die. If you don't pay us enough to bring home dinner, we'll start eating the rich. Dear neighbor, if you're still listening, dear neighbor, if you're still listening, you are the reason I refuse to hold my breath. These words are meant to be shared just like everything else. My voice is just one on top of millions. Together, we are strong enough to move moons and make our own tides of change. Until then, let us never stop yelling.
That was Tyler Page. Thank you so much. So my name is Charlene Carolasia, and I have the great pleasure of being here for Jenna Westfall today. Jenna is presently in the Media Arts program at Central Connecticut State University. graduate of Conard High School in West Hartford. Jenna was adopted at 10 months old from China and raised in West Hartford by her two moms. While at Conard, Jenna led the school outside for the national walkout protests against gun violence. She was also the assistant organizer in March for the March for Our Lives with Tyler Suarez, welcoming over 10,000 in attendance. Jenna is passionate about human rights and social justice and welcomes listening, understanding, and working together. It is my pleasure to introduce Jenna.
Hello, Connecticut. Happy 70th anniversary of the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. In this declaration, there are over 30 articles defining human rights, and here we are 70 years later, still struggling for justice today. On March 14th this year at 10 a.m., for 17 minutes, hundreds of thousands of individuals across our nation and other countries joined outside of their school to honor 17 people who were killed in the Parkland shooting. Our generation has had to live with shootings, which have forever altered our lives, as every victim of gun violence understands. Many that day remained silent for 17 minutes in memory of the 17 victims, and yet others stayed quiet to protest against gun violence. No matter the reason for walking out that day, it was the fact that we all came together to be unified that counted. Our schools and our neighborhoods should not feel like a war zone. Gun laws need to change for the future of our schools, our communities, and our country. It is our right to live safely without fear, and enough is enough. As stated in Article 1 of the Declaration, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in the spirit of brotherhood. The weakest links in our chain of citizens are as important as all others and should be supported, not deported. As women in 2018, we should all have the freedom for the right of agency over our own bodies. As students in 2018, the ideas of vouchers would sadly eliminate the supports and accommodations for those of us with learning disabilities. Lacking empathy is not the answer, but rather let us introduce compassion for the least among us. Previous generations have paved the path of human rights for us, and now it is our responsibility to help make our schools and neighborhoods safe again through stricter gun laws. It is our responsibility to protect our rights for legal and safe abortion, birth control, and the rights to have good quality reproductive health care. It is our responsibility to maintain the American Disabilities Act, which helps prohibit discrimination and elimination of supports for disabilities. And it is our responsibility to preserve equality and dignity for rights, whether it be for immigrants, LGBTQs, disabilities, women, men, and children. To all of us, change cannot wait any longer. Here and now, it is time to reach out and raise our voices. Each of us holds the power to create change, and that would be with our right to vote. Let's make the changes needed for the future that belongs to all of us. Thank you.
Hello, Connecticut. Thank you for coming today, everyone. I'm Judy Wyman Kelly, co-chair of the West Hartford Human Rights Commission. Thank you, Jenna. That was wonderful. Next speaker is Todd Zwed, who's a teacher of human rights at East Hartford High School. Todd?
Good afternoon. So as you heard, my name is Todd Zwed, and I proudly teach across the river at East Hartford High School. I've been a human rights teacher now for 12 years, along with my colleague Chris Sparks, who couldn't make it here today. On behalf of the Connecticut Human Rights Partnership and its co-sponsors, thank you for being here. So a little history lesson. and I feel like I'm repeating the other speakers a little bit, but in 1948, Eleanor Roosevelt and her team of international humanitarians looked on as the United Nations adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a document designed to promote human dignity and justice throughout our world. Here we are 70 years later, and we're at a critical moment in our country's history, a true crossroads that have two distinct choices. The first choice offers luxuries, human rights luxuries to a select few. But the individuals and organizations here today are offering a very different path, a second choice. A choice that human rights, it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, the color of your skin, how much money you have in your pocket, who you choose to love, or your gender. It's a superhighway marked by twists, turns, and unfortunately the occasional pothole. But I think it's a road worth taking. When thinking about what I wanted to share with you here today, my mind raced because in human rights, there are a million things that we can talk about, as you've heard so far today. So my thoughts went back to Eleanor Roosevelt. And we've heard this quote earlier today. So I won't reread it to you, but the premise of the quote is this: human rights begins with you and I. It begins locally in our homes. It does not necessarily start in a room in DC or in a courtroom. It starts here in our hearts with you and I. That's where it begins. So I'd like to issue a challenge to all of us today, including myself. I'd like you to talk to the people here today. Go over to the booths. Engage people in conversations. Find at least one thing that you are truly passionate about. Put time and energy into that one thing. And when you leave here today, take that energy and have conversations with people. Both those who are like-minded and even those who disagree with you. It is critical that we start talking to people that we do not see eye to eye with. It's frustrating, but we need to do it. We need to reach across the aisle, to reach hearts and minds, to convince people that we all need to go towards human rights and equality. And finally, as a teacher, I am truly inspired by all the students here today. I enjoy listening to them more than myself. The students here today and the students around the state will lead the way. And here's my challenge for you. Show everyone what you are capable of. These young people speaking here today inspire me. Don't look on passively as our executive branch tramples on human rights. Start here. Let Connecticut, let our towns, our communities, and our students lead the way. So let human rights and human rights students lead us to a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Before our next speaker, I just wanted to read off some more of our co-sponsors. Thank you so much to the National Conference for Community and Justice, the Connecticut AFL-CIO, the Connecticut Council for Interreligious Understanding, the Connecticut Education Association, the Connecticut Fund for the Environment, Connecticut Humanities, Connecticut Trans Advocacy Coalition, the Connecticut Women's Education and Legal Fund, and the executive director will be a speaker later. Fight for 15, Fixing Fathers Incorporated, Golden Door, they are doing voter registration just over there. Hartford Capital City Pride, Hartford Food Systems, the Human Rights Institute, Yukon. Integrated Refugee and Immigration Services, we'll hear a speaker from that organization also. League of Women Voters of Connecticut, local in northeastern Connecticut, southeastern Connecticut, and central Connecticut. And a shout out to the Manchester High School students and faculty. Thank you. So our next speaker is Cheryl Sharp, who's Deputy Director of the State Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities.
Thank you for the introduction. I am excited to be a part of this celebration. Happy 70th anniversary. This is a celebration today, right? So let's give ourselves a round of applause for coming together to celebrate such an important landmark. However, I would like to caution us. We shouldn't just celebrate, we should do something. Let us not fall short. Short of what, you ask? Let us not fall short of protecting our children in schools from discrimination. Let us not fall short of protecting one another from discrimination, because it starts with changing hearts and it starts with changing minds. I'm an attorney. We have many laws on the books. Connecticut is one of the most progressive states in the nation. And I am with the State of Connecticut Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities. And this year, we celebrate 75 years of civil rights law enforcement. But guess what? It is not enough. Let us not fall short of providing the same quality education to every student in Connecticut. Let us not fall short of providing opportunities for employment to every person in the state of Connecticut. Let us not fall short of assisting individuals who have mental disabilities or physical disabilities with getting the accommodations that they need in schools and in places of employment and in places of public accommodation. Let us not fall short, because it is not enough to celebrate. We've had a lot of celebrations, right? But we still have children who have been separated from their parents. We still have bombings. We still have disrespect to religion. We still have the objectification of women, and it needs to stop. So let us not fall short. Everyone, hold your hands out for me. Look at them. Look in your hands. The power of change is in your hands. The power of change is in your hands. Look at your neighbor's hands. The power of change is in your neighbor's hands. We cannot fall short if we all recognize that the power of changing society and making it a place where everyone can live, making it a place where if you have come to this country seeking a better life, that it's okay and you can get one here. Let us not fall short because we turn our backs on some people and we close the doors for some people, but we have the door wide open for others. We are falling short when we do that. That's not the Connecticut I know, that's not the nation that I believe in, and that's not what this document supports. So let us not fall short. Lastly, I'd like to say we have a booth over there at the Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities, and one of our attorneys, Alex Simonetti, has material, because it is important so that we don't fall short, that we know what our rights are, and we know the resources available to us to protect us. I am so inspired by every young person who took the time out on a Saturday when you could be playing some video game, which I won't try to name because I can't remember what the systems are called anymore, or you could have been doing something else. And for every person who came and stood out here and thought that, you know what, on this day, as we celebrate 70 years, I'm not going to fall short, because I know the power of change. And everyone hold your hands up with me. The power of change is in my hands. Say it with me. The power of change is in my hands. Thank you very much to all the organizers, and thank you for having me.
Thank Thank you, Cheryl, for that inspiring speech. And now for some more inspiration, we have Pastor A.J. Johnson from the Urban Hope Refuge Church.
Everyone, I don't believe in having quiet church. I don't believe in having quiet rallies. I don't believe this is not a funeral. This is a celebration. So if you're here for a celebration, make some noise, please. Yeah, that wasn't what I expected it to be. I said if you were here to celebrate, make some noise in this place. Let's go. Wow. Thought I was at a funeral, not a rally. All right, here we go. When I say no more, you say slumlords. No more. No more. No more. No justice. No justice. No justice. All right, we're in the right place. Put your hands together. Let's go. Let's go. Good afternoon. What up, Pat? Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Pastor A.J. Johnson, and I am the senior pastor of Urban Hope Refuge Church and the lead organizer at the Christian Activities Council, where we develop leaders and organize for power. Can everybody say power? Power! 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 Power. What we teach, I believe that our faith activates us past charity into justice. I believe that there are 2 feet to the church. There are 2 feet to the church. That's why I love this today, because there are 2 feet to the church. One is charity. Charity is what we do for other people. Clothing, food, help, money, grants. But I believe that the church should not just stay with charity, but the church should move to justice. Can everybody say justice? Justice! 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 So I believe that power in this country comes in 2 forms. Everybody say 2 forms. 2 forms. Organized money and organized people. And the only way that our rights are going to be guaranteed is if those 2 things come together, and it creates power. Organized money and organized people. What we have here today is organized people. Make some noise for yourself here today. But each organization comes with money. So the movement cannot be built just with people. It has to be built with money. Today, I stand here and declare that America is the richest democracy with the worst poverty. Somebody say boo! Boo! Today, black men are locked up while black women cannot find quality and affordable housing to raise their children. If anybody knows me or have been following me in the news, you know that residents went up against a slumlord that was making $1.4 million, who owned half of a community in North Hartford. And those neighbors, those residents got together and formed what we say organized money and organized people, which created power. And we kicked that slumlord out of Hartford. Can we make some noise for that, please? But we still have a problem today. We still have a problem. 85% of government subsidized units are located in moderate, low, or very low opportunity areas. Areas less likely to provide access to fully resourced schools and social networks that lead to jobs. So anybody that is living in affordable housing, they're not living in Avon, they're not living in Glastonbury, they're not living in Weathersfield, they are living in Bridgeport, Waterbury, New Haven, and Hartford, okay? So that means families that want to give their family an opportunity, their children, to get a proper education cannot afford to move to the suburbs. So the problem and the human rights issue that we have right now is the fact that there is no affordable housing in the suburbs. And families families want to raise their family the same ways that you're raising your family. They want a good education. They want to go to Starbucks. They want, you know what I'm saying? They want to walk around West Hartford Square. But unfortunately, subsidized housing only happens in low-income neighborhoods. So what do we have to do? It is a human right that everybody has decent, affordable housing. So what we have to do is we have to break that mold and provide affordable housing and mixed income housing in high opportunity areas like Avon, like Glastonbury. So we have to do that. 51%, listen to this, 51% of renters in Connecticut spend 30% or more of their household incomes on housing. Do you know what that means? So it's rather I pay for rent or I pay for childcare. Either I pay for rent or I pay for gas. I pay for rent or I pay for food on my table. We have to change that. We have to open up the wealth gap in this country. Okay, I can't get no help in here today. We have to open up the wealth gap in this country. Everybody deserves to live and eat like we have dignity. Amen. I got one amen. So finally, I want you to listen to this. There are 22 public housing and project-based voucher waiting lists in Connecticut, and all of them are closed or open indefinitely. So that means if someone spends 30% of their income on housing, right, and they want to get a housing voucher, the list in every town, in 22 towns, are closed or open indefinitely. In Hartford, there is a 5,000 person waiting list for housing. So that means families either are in shelters or living in places, or living with family members or couch surfing. So what we have to do is open up the waiting list. What we have to do is allow mixed housing in different communities so every child can have an opportunity to a good education. My name is Pastor A.J. Johnson, and I believe that there are we need no more slumlords in the state of Connecticut. So I'm going to say it again. When I say no more, you say slumlords. No more! Slumlords! 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 Come on, make some noise here.
Thank you, Pastor Johnson. Next up, we have a performance by a friend and colleague, Chris Newell, who is Director of Education for the Acomat Educational Initiative. Thank you, Chris.
All right, thank you. Thank you all for having me here today. My name is Chris Newell, and I'm the Director of Education, co-founder for the Acomat Educational Initiative. And what we do is we work on bringing Indigenous history out into the public, all public points of learning, whether it's your schools, whether it's your historical sites, whether it's museums. And a large part of that is because Indigenous history has been largely hidden from you. And we want to change that. Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz, in her book, Indigenous Peoples' Histories of the United States, poses a question that says, what would acknowledgement of Indigenous history do to transform our society? And that's what we at Acomat are working to help here in Connecticut. And so I was brought up here. I'm going to sing you guys a song today. I want to bring some energy here to this rally today. I'm a Passamaquoddy. I don't come from Connecticut myself. My wife is Mashantucket Pequot. My children are Mashantucket Pequot. I live on the oldest continuously occupied reservation right here in Connecticut. If you did not know, the reservation system started here in Connecticut. So if Connecticut did acknowledge their Indigenous history, would John Mason be up here on this building right above me at this time? Let's think about that a little bit, right? So I'm here to change the energy for you here. I'm going to sing a song for my community that we call the medicine song. There's no words to it. It's a melody that was hundreds of years old that we use for healing, for change. And so that's what I'm bringing with me today, is some music from my community. So here we go with a Passamaquoddy medicine song. Way ahead, way Tahoe. Thank you, everybody.
So coming to our final third of the group of speakers today, I'm happy to introduce Robin McCallan, Executive Director of True Colors.
So my name is Robin McCallan. I'm the Executive Director of an organization called True Colors. For those of you who don't know what True Colors does, we do education and advocacy for gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, intersex, queer, questioning, two-spirit, same-gender loving, pansexual, flexual, not straight, not labeling, straight-ish, straight so far, straight with options, straight but stuff happens, gender-bending, bi-gendered, pan-gendered, agendered, asexual, non-binary, and other sexual and gender minority youth. We have a number of different programs, and I never go anywhere. First of all, I just have to say this part first. I never go anywhere without saying that in Connecticut, there's about 75 teenagers who are in very restricted levels of care, not because they need to be there, but because there are no families that are willing to open their hearts and their homes to teenagers and to adolescents. So if you've got room in your heart and your home, there's a teen of all different orientations and genders that's looking for a family to love them. So I've been listening to all of the speeches. I feel a little shy about being up here because people have been so amazing. But I guess I have a couple of things to say. So for example, November is the 10-year anniversary of marriage equality in the state of Connecticut, which is interesting. And with the Supreme Court ruling a couple of years ago, same-sex couples can marry in all 50 states. But in 2018, in 29 of them, they could get married on Saturday and fired on Monday, and there would be nothing they could do about it. In 29 states. In 33 states, and if Massachusetts has its way and gets this on their referendum coming up in November, it'll be 34 states, you can be fired because somebody doesn't think you're man enough or woman enough to do your job. So when we're talking about orientation and gender, we're talking about pretty much everybody, not just one small segment of our community. The other thing that I think is really interesting when you study the history of sexuality and you look at what across the millennia, that one of the things that's become increasingly clear to me, well here, let me tell you this first. 5 years ago, about 10% of the youth that responded to a survey, a national survey, identified as non-binary, genderqueer or non-binary. Last year, they repeated the survey, and 34 youth identified as non-binary, youth between 13 and 17, genderqueer or non-binary. That changing of the identity, that there's not just male and not just female, it's really interesting when you look at the genesis of that. That was a colonial imposition of a concept on indigenous cultures across the world. As white Europeans took their concepts of Puritanism and two sexes to all of the places that they moved around the world, they removed and violated the indigenous people's enormous understanding that humanity and humans live and express their gender in multiple different ways. They express their relationships in multiple different ways, and that there's all kinds of information that those things existed until colonial imperialism killed it out of the people that they conquered. And so I think that's an important piece, to recognize that who we are today is a part of a larger system of oppression that started millennia ago and that continues to impact every single person among us. As a white middle-class woman, I live a certain way in the world, right? I have certain privileges and certain things that I experience that have nothing to do with my skill set, that have nothing to do with my abilities in the world, that simply have to do with the accident of my birth, right? And that as a white woman, as a white queer woman, I have a very different experience than one of the folks that I work in Hartford, who's the Jamaican dad of a gay son. If he has to look for support for his identity, who does he go to? Because as a white woman, if I go to PFLAG, there's going to be people that look just like me in that group. But if I'm a recent Asian immigrant and I go to PFLAG, there's not going to be anybody that looks like me. If I'm from the West Indies, there's not going to be anybody that looks like me. And so as we look at the human rights issues that we're talking about today, we're talking about racism, we're talking about immigration, we're talking about the brutalization of children and families coming into our communities, we're talking about police brutality and police violence against communities of color. All of those issues are intersected and connected because within all of those communities, there are also LGBT people who are experiencing that. We have to look at the world in our relationship to each other, because every time we separate ourselves or we make it about this group versus this group and we fight together, the 1% wins. And that's got to change. Thank you.
So I was looking over, next speaker is about my height, taller I think, and someone well known for working on one of these important human rights issues that have, unfortunately because of, partly because of, very much because of human choice, become a bigger and worse issue than it needs to be, the immigration issue and the status of refugees. Chris George, the Executive Director of IRIS. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, CHRP. And thank you all for coming today. I work at a refugee resettlement nonprofit. It's called IRIS, Integrated Refugee and Immigrant Services. We work all over the state, and in fact, I see a lot of volunteers who've assisted us in welcoming refugees. Give them a round of applause. Volunteers who have helped refugees. Our job is to welcome refugees from all over the world. We're talking mothers, fathers, children who've suffered terrible persecution. We welcome them to Connecticut and help them start new lives. This is our nation's oldest and most noble tradition. They come from places like the Congo, Sudan, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, and all they want is a place to live peacefully with freedom, security, and opportunities, where their human rights are respected and defended. Now, some people will say, we have enough problems of our own. Americans born in this country need all kinds of help. They need jobs, they need health care, they need better opportunities. Why are we bringing all these foreigners? Why don't we just concentrate on people in this country already? Focus on just helping Americans. Of course we have to help Americans. It's a false choice. We can do both. Clap your hands if you agree. We can do both. We can help U.S. citizens who are born in this country who need a helping hand, and at the same time we can reach across the globe and help persecuted people who have been forced to flee their countries. We can do both. We can improve our domestic policies and programs, treat all Americans with dignity and respect, especially people of color and women, minorities, and at the same time we can have a strong foreign policy that is rooted in human rights. We should play a leading role in resettling refugees, but under the Trump administration, we have abandoned that responsibility. Some people want to scapegoat refugees and other immigrants, blame them for all of the problems we have in this country. They want us to fear the foreigner. They say refugees threaten our security. The fact is refugees don't set foot in this country until they have passed through the most rigorous security vetting process the world has ever known. so we can protect our country and maintain this life-saving American tradition of welcoming refugees. We can do both. Clap your hands if you agree. Look, these are crazy times we're living in. Disheartening times, shocking things happening. But let's agree we're not going to be part of this craziness. Let's resolve that we will have the courage of our convictions. When we hear or see something outrageous, we won't let it slide. We'll call on people for their racism and bigotry, no matter who they are, elected officials, friends, and even family. Let's also agree that we're not just going to preach to the choir. Do you hear that, choir? We're not just going to preach to the choir. We will speak to individuals and groups who are not sympathetic to our cause. We'll seek out adversaries, find those whose opinions we reject and engage them in conversation. And in our discussions, let's resolve that we will not stoop to insults. Racists and bigots often use words that are as ugly as their ideas. We will speak respectfully, making sure that our rhetoric and our nonviolent actions match the morality of our cause. Do you agree? Let's stick to the facts. Students, especially important, stick to the facts. Respect our free and independent press. Thank you. Any journalists here? A round of applause for good journalists. And we will take all kinds of action. We'll speak out. We'll write letters. We'll write op-eds. We will stand up. We will organize. We'll sing. We'll dance. We'll make art. We'll walk. We'll march. We'll even run. You're all invited to the Run for Refugees February 3rd in New Haven. This will be a long and tough struggle. Stay strong, work hard, and keep the faith. Thank you.
And next is Kate Farrar, Executive Director of Connecticut Women's Educational and Legal Fund. Kate Farrar.
Beautiful people, give yourselves a round of applause. When I say human rights, you say women's rights. Human rights. Women's rights. Human rights. Women's rights. When I say women's rights, you say human rights. Women's rights. Human rights. Women's rights. Human rights. Give yourselves a round of applause for that beautiful, beautiful message. I want you to listen closely to this sentence I'm going to share. Equality of rights under the law should not be denied by the United States or any state on account of sex. 80% of our country believes that that statement is already guaranteed in our Constitution. It is not. To this day, that statement, known as the Equal Rights Amendment, was never ratified. Most European constitutions across our world have updated their constitutions to acknowledge this fundamental right. And every day in our country, the common struggle continues. We've talked today about the common struggle of class, disability, race, gender identity. And at the heart of our organization, the Connecticut Women's Education and Legal Fund, we imagine that world where gender equity is realized. Are you with me? Yes. Our founders formed our organization 45 years ago. 45 years ago in our state where we stand, women couldn't access credit at a bank without a man. Women couldn't seek a divorce attorney on their own. The term sexual harassment did not even exist. Today, 70 years since this incredible Declaration of Human Rights, we know that as women and our sisters and mothers and daughters, we have made gains, but the women in Connecticut, we know that we still face daily discrimination. The economic security, our health and safety, just our bodily autonomy are under attack and at risk every day. And to be clear, the struggle is even greater for women of color, LGBTQIA transgender sisters, and women with disabilities. Will we accept that any longer? No. I ask us today to remind ourselves, human rights are women's rights. Women's rights are human rights. One of the articles in the Declaration refers to the very special need and care that as a society we take on of mothers and children in our world. The United States is one of only 2 countries in the world that to this day has no form of paid family medical leave. What do we say to that? Boo! Think about that. That means every single one of us, for the birth, adoption of a child, or self or family illness, is facing financial crisis, loss of our job, and unable to make the true choices that we need to make in our lives. In Connecticut, QUELF is proud to lead the campaign for paid family medical leave. And with each of you, this year, we can pass in our state paid family medical leave. Are you with me? We are now surrounded on every side. Every state around us now has paid family medical leave. We must lead or be left behind. There are true costs to women and men in our state for not standing up for this human right. There are true costs for our state for doing nothing. And I would say it wasn't in the Declaration, but I hope we all know the phrase, if you aren't at the table, you're likely on the menu. Right? We know that phrase. We heard earlier that Eleanor Roosevelt, she was a very prominent woman on the drafting committee of the Declaration of Human Rights. But very little attention was given to the contribution of 3 non-Western women to the drafting. I want to share their names with you. Minerva Bernardino from the Dominican Republic, Hansa Mehta from India, and Begum Shasta Ikramullah from Pakistan. Those 4 women were integral when this declaration was being drafted to make sure that it didn't say men, it said all human beings, and that the notion of non-discrimination based on sex was even in the Declaration. In Connecticut today, women remain just 27% of the state legislature. We all have a role to make sure that women's voices are included at that decision-making table, including in this building behind us. I challenge all of you today, we have a true opportunity between now and November 6th to make sure that you're asking candidates, what are they going to do for the women of Connecticut? What are they going to do to lead and pass paid family medical leave? You can do that simple ask today, and you can ask your friends and neighbors to do the same. Each of us here today, we believe in common humanity. That is what binds us together. I believe in your individual voice, and I believe in all of us and our collective power. Eleanor, Minerva, Hansa, and Begum, they believed in all of us to stand up for all human beings, women and men. Let's leave here today knowing that we're bonded together and take action. Thank you.
The GUN poem, the Guide Us Now poem. America, land of the free and home of the brave. America, land of the thief and home of the slave, of the immigrant, of democracy, of the billionaire, of the dream. There are three sides to every story: your side, their side, and the truth. And the truth is this: in this past year alone, more kids have been killed at school than have been served while active duty in the military. Public school kids are more likely to be fatally shot than police officers. This is our America. The United States makes up about 4.4% of the global population, but owns 42% of the world's guns. Since Sandy Hook, a gun has been fired on school grounds nearly once a week. And now I have a few questions, and they're rhetorical, and please forgive me if they get redundant. But why is it easier to purchase guns than it is Skittles, rest in peace Trayvon, than a bottle of booze, then Junior Guzman getting help, R.I.P., then clean water, then flood water, 4645, 4645, 4645, R.I.P. Puerto Rico. I ask again, why is it easier to purchase guns than it is books for a classroom? Than a couple that wants a wedding cake? I ask one last time, why is it easier to purchase guns than it is a one-way plane ticket back to your homeland with a Made in America clothing tag? Because you want nothing more than to rip it off because it is just so uncomfortable. Look, you want to own guns? Fine. The United States is only one of a few countries that believes people have an inherent right to own guns, but the numbers don't lie. They say the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Well, tell that to the bad guy that shot a good guy with no gun. This is our America. Until kids can come home safely without being shot at in schools, this is not my America. Until kids get an equal shot at education before getting shot, this is not my America. But I tell you today, it will be our America before it is all over. 465, 465, 465, the number of kids that have been killed in schools in America to gun violence. Please take a moment of silence. We need more than just thoughts and prayers. We need policies and change.
I fall down sometimes, but every time I do get back up. This world keeps turning, but from time to time I do get stuck. And I'm just trying to run this race. So many people stuck in place. They claiming that they one day chase, but they ain't take a step yet. I fall down sometimes, but every time I do get back up. This world keeps turning, but from time to time I do get stuck. And I'm just trying to run this race. So many people stuck in place. They claiming that they one day chase, but they ain't take a step yet. I've been dissecting these days lately, trying to find myself solutions in this world's pollution. All these shootings putting holes inside my evolution. My extinction is dependent on a revolution. Damn, what type of scary shit is that? Living in a world feeling weary that I'm black. Every second is a gift, a bullet doesn't hit my back. I wrote some rhymes about it. I put my heart into this fight, plus my mind's about it. Action over words, you heard what you knew about it. Claiming that you really real, but you ain't true about it. Acting like you didn't know when you all knew about it. My time is too precious to waste. But Tina Love told me I gotta focus on the population that's ready to move and build with them inside the space. This world will trick you with its misconceptions and make you think you're responsible for your own oppression. Now, ain't that some type of deception, homie? Ain't that some type of aggression, homie? I studied hard and yes, I truly learned the lessons, homie. And what I learned is that these schools ain't got no lessons for me. Knowledge itself is how I do bottle my wealth. My mama said you gotta help others, but first honor yourself. I'm trying to refocus my inner vision, tap into my intuition and my inner wisdom. I refuse to stay locked inside of a mental prison. Voice is a catalyst for change only if people listen. Action over word, cousin. The freedom fight for human rights, it got the world buzzing. From mountaintops to street blocks, I hear the world crying. Black girls going missing, got my world dying. And while we kill the conversation about Puerto Rico, the aftermath and devastation still affecting people. But we too busy investing in protecting our guns, while Flint, Michigan water still infected with scum. Out of sight and out of mind is how the story goes. Make that money, get that power is how the glory goes. The cost of living is given, we can't afford these woes. Too many people at the top that just ignore the low. And I've been dissecting these days, full of stress and all this mess. Steady processing this pain, got me picking up a pen and writing poems and stay sane, damn. I guess I'll stay fighting for change. Mission of my lyricism is to shine light in the range. To gain growth, you need both sun and the rain. Metaphor for the need to have both joy and the pain. Oh, I fall down sometimes, but every time I do get back up. This world keeps turning, but from time to time I do get stuck. And I'm just trying to run this race. So many people stuck in place. They claiming that they one day race, but they ain't take a step yet. I fall down sometimes, but every time I do get back up. This world keeps turning, but from time to time I do get stuck. And we're just trying to run this race. So many people stuck in place. They claiming that they one day chase, but they ain't take a step. Yeah, please clap it up for yourself.
I have a couple more sets of thanks before we close. I mentioned before in a blanket way, and it would be really hard, again, to name everyone, but I just was up there thinking about all the people that worked all summer to make this happen, and I'm really pleased with this event. It's very inspiring. Thank you to all of our great speakers and performers today. And so just like a list of first names, and may even leave a few out, but you know who you are. Think of Corey, Glenn, Nana, Tracy, Stu, Patricia, Shamala, Judy, Jane, Charlene, Alan, Sagacity, Abby, Jake, Chris, Iman, and Angel Rihanna, who worked with Jake and myself to do a social media campaign. So many people contributed a lot of things, and Alan brought these buttons that you're all wearing. So get a button. Someone arranged, I think it was Nana, to have little bookmarks that you can take with you, so make sure to take one of those. Glenn organized the t-shirts, so many things. So thank you in just a collective way to all those folks who did something for today. I also want to mention the last set of our co-sponsors. The Herscher Institute for Applied Ethics at Sacred Heart University, which I co-direct. We provide the porta pots, so go enjoy. They're very, very clean, so before you leave Hartford today, enjoy it. I want to have a label on it. Hall High School students and faculty, thank you. This is the third time this happened to me today. We need a YouTube funny video of me chasing my papers around. He even told me to bring clips. I did, but I'm not using them. The Neighbor Fund, Our Revolution Connecticut team, Peace Center of Connecticut, Quiet Corner Refugee Resettlement Project. They have a table over there. Radical Advocates for Cross-Cultural Education, Urban Hope Refuge Church, West Hartford Human Rights Commission, and Women's March Connecticut, We March On. That brought us Judy, Jane, and Charlene, working with both of those organizations, or some with both, who've been great partners with us. And the Women's March folks brought a lot of expertise for how to organize an event, so we're very grateful to them. And lastly, UConn, so many centers at UConn Hartford, UConn Human Rights Institute, and Professor Kathy Leibel, who brought a lot of our students here today, so thank you. And finally, the Thomas J. Dodd Research Center at UConn. And I kind of end with them because I'm going to introduce Glenn, but I just want to say, so many people contributed. No organization was, did it all. But for my money, really one of our indispensable organizations was the Thomas J. Dodd Center, and Nana, who did so much behind-the-scenes work and really kind of kept it all working. Nana Amos, and the director of the Dodd Center, and my colleague, Glenn Mintoma, a great human rights teacher, scholar, and the vice chair of the Connecticut Human Rights Partnership. So to conclude for us today, Glenn.
All right, y'all. It's been a great long afternoon, and it's my job to kind of close it up here. But before we do, I want to see all of those signs in the air, out in front of me. I want to see this vision of what we're doing here today. Hold them up. Hold them up. Woo! All right, those signs express a range of feelings and a range of urgent issues that we're all working hard on. I think you heard over the sweep of this afternoon, a lot of work to be done. A lot of work to be done. But I think what I want us to take away from today is that these are not separate struggles. These are not individual issues that we work on. These are all part of the same struggle. The struggle for dignity, equality, and justice for each and every one of us. And it's not more work to take on different aspects of this struggle. It is less work when we do it together. When we come together as a community. When we work in partnership and coalition across all our areas of concern. When we build a beloved community that sees each other and their dignity in each other's eyes and in each other's hearts. And so this is not a closing that I'm giving right now. This is an opening. An opening and an invitation. It has been 70 years since the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted. And I don't think any of us for a moment would believe that that document has been implemented in anything like a reasonable fashion. But if this day today is a celebration, and it is a celebration, it's a celebration that we are still here, that we are not gone, that we are not crushed, that we are not ground down by 70 years of oppression, of challenges, of hate, of anger, which we know continue to flow through our society, our world, and in some cases our very hearts. And so if we're celebrating anything, it's 70 years of still being here and still struggling. But more than a celebration, this is a call to action. We're actually a little early for the anniversary. That'll happen in December. And we have a lot of work to do between now and December 14th, when we're going to have a summit in this state to lay out a map for advancing human rights in the state of Connecticut. And then we're going to have a lot of work to do in the days and weeks and months to come. I want to thank you all for turning out to be a part of that, and to ask you to turn out again and again and again, in large groups, sometimes on the steps of great buildings, but also in small groups, inside houses, inside living rooms, inside classrooms, to advance this work one day at a time, one step at a time. And I expect as well that you'll bring more people in each and every time. All right. So with that, I ask you one last time to join with me. I'm going to say human. What are you going to say? Rights. Human? Rights. Human? Rights. Human? Rights. Thank you. Good afternoon.